So, we all worry about getting unknowingly caught by a scamster's SMS, or falling prey to a link via email from what's really not our bank. And as an ex-banker, I go crazy reminding friends and family to, set smart passwords, strong passwords. Don't click on everything you get. Don't share your card details, etc. Because every fraud hits hard, right? No matter what the amount, you feel like you've been deceived. You feel like you've been conned of your savings and your wealth, and it is a betrayal. So while we focus on these small things, we as citizens and taxpayers have been conned many times over by some really serious frauds, and someone will tell us what serious really means, right? So, in a first of its kind book, The Great Indian Fraud reveals how many serious frauds result from manipulation of complex financial transactions involving simple maths and tricks, but it deceives regulators, enforcers, businesses, customers. So, warm welcome to you, Smarak, author, policy analyst, tax diplomat, and the revealer of secrets that fraudsters have been perpetrating time and again. Smarak has been in government service across several roles: in income tax as Joint Commissioner, in foreign tax as Deputy Secretary, Pricing Agreements, and is currently Director of Administration in the Department of Revenue. He writes in leading publications on geoeconomics, economic warfare, taxation, cross border transactions. So, thank you so much for giving us your time this evening.
Discussion here on the Bangalore Business Lit Fest.
Great. So, let me begin. Um, you have clearly seen the dark underbelly of the world of finance and business. When did you realize that there is a book here?
Bangalore. Back when I was working in the investigation wing in Bangalore, at that time, I used to come across very interesting modus operandi, and at the same time, when I used to interact with people, all kinds of people, there may be subjects, there may be people who have abetted laundering activities, or there may be people who have seen these things happen on the sidelines, or there may be victims also. I found that there are some stories there. And also, importantly, what I saw is that these are stories. I mean, the modus operandi that I saw at that point of time, they're very similar to the modus operandi which I had read about in reports that date back to 1960s, 1970s. Then I thought that there is a pattern here. What used to happen 50 years back, that's still happening now, even though the nature has changed, even though the regulation has become much more complex, even though technology has been brought in to regulate the financial world. The kind of offenses that are still happening are very similar to the offenses that were happening earlier.
Right, right. And I think that's something that you reiterate often in the book, that there is a pattern, and it's getting more complex, but the pattern still exists, and there are similar patterns, and that's what you're highlighting. In thinking of sharing these stories, what was your biggest challenge? And I must ask, at any time, did you fear the consequences of some of the stories and the names that you were going to bring out?
Well. The biggest challenge in while writing the book was in the writing itself, because financial frauds are quite complex. They're very different. I mean, they're very different from normal frauds, from normal criminal activities. They are pretty complex, and explaining them to a layman would be very difficult. So that was the first challenge that I faced. And generally, when I talk with regulators, when I talk with personnel from RBI or SEBI, or some investigators from income tax department or enforcement directorate, we all talk in a very we all talk in a language that is laden with a lot of jargon. So that had to be simplified for people, so that and I need to have a voice behind the narrative. Otherwise, anyone who is a normal graduate or normal MBA student, he won't be able to accept the book. Okay, he will not find it very enthusing. So that was the main challenge that I faced while writing the book. And the second challenge, as you said, when writing about huge frauds, big frauds, you have to be very careful about what you are writing, because a writer is always liable to suits, defamation suit, or any other kind of lawsuit. So the writer has to be very, very careful about how he is writing the book. So there are many of the cases which I have discussed in the book, which are ongoing cases where the conviction has still not happened. There's a
Correct.
possibility also that those allegations may be proved to be wrong. So my role was to narrate them in a way that I'm not leaving any kind of loose allegation of my own. I just mention what are the allegations made by by this agency or that agency or by the court, or what the court is looking into, what matter is subjudice in court, and then I go into a general narrative. So that was the second challenge that I faced in writing the book.
Sure. And I think you chose a very storytelling kind of narrative style, because in each chapter, before really jumping into the fraud, you are able to set the context, explain to us how that industry or how that whole space works, whether it's export import or taxation or startups, and then lead into what some of the serious frauds that have happened. Um, keeping in mind the theme of our lit fest this year, which is really around startups, I'm going to jump to one of your later chapters. Can I, as a retail investor, really trust startup valuations today? What's going on? Is it a long con, or is it based on something?
That's an interesting question, Subha, and that's a question that many people are asking. Many investors are also asking this question, and there's been a lot of debate on this question. What my view is that, okay, the startup industry per se, it's quite neat and clean, but because of the nature of valuations, because it is so difficult to value startups, there are some fraudsters which have also come on board. So
Mm,
forms of valuation that we're using that cannot be used for valuing startups. The three traditional methods that are generally used in actual science. One was cost method, one is the market method, and the third one was the income method. Under the income method, there's a methodology called the DCF, discounted cash flow, which is generally used. Okay, but those are methods which were developed some 30 years back by actual science. The startups that we see today, they are developing over the digital economy. So the traditional economy relied on business models, which we generally call the pipeline business models. Whereas the digital economy relies on new kinds of business models, which are the platform business models, where the growth happens exponentially. So there are some new metrics, okay, which have been developed, and luckily, most of the professional investors have technically sound employees or technically sound professionals who give them the right kind of advice. They use the right kind of metrics to judge whether a company is going to succeed or not. Now, second, I mean, having said that, the risk involved is significant. So, a genuine company that you see on today's date, maybe tomorrow it will succeed, maybe tomorrow it will fail. But it does not mean that it is a fraudulent company.
fair.
A fraudulent company will always try to color itself as a startup, but it is not a startup. That's my small point here.
No, I think that's a very well said and a fair articulation of what we are seeing, right? Um, and you bring it out in your book, in how, let's say, the case of Satyam, there is an intent to fraud, and so that at some point catches up with the founder and the company, right? um, Many
Yeah.
of the serious frauds that you have highlighted, the numbers are so huge, and there is a huge element of lack of oversight, right? And so when I read about, let's say, even Nirav Modi and the PNB fraud, as a banker, I'm thinking there are numerous controls, so many checks and balances and processes. Um, is are people internally to be blamed? Auditors are to be blamed, or is it just designed to fail, that we don't have enough checks to catch this?
Suhab, the thing is that on today's date, the financial world has evolved in such a major way that the world of finance itself has become a complex system. It is no longer a simple system. It's a complex system, and the entire complex system is not under the control of a single regulator. So in the complex system, there are many
Yeah.
subsystems. Each system is under the control of a regulator, and there's another problem, that is cross-border problem. So within one country, there may be one set of regulators. In the other country, there are another set of regulators. So you can, if I can use that analogy, so the financial market is just like an elephant. Okay, so every regulator is good in the sense that every regulator is regulating some part of it, some part of the elephant. Someone is regulating the tail, someone is regulating the trunk, but no one knows how big the elephant is. No one knows how the elephant completely operates. So that is where these companies, they misuse the system. They create a large number of companies. Generally, what they do is they do not rely on a single company or two companies or three companies. They create a plethora of cell companies. These cell companies, some of them operate in offshore finance centers, some of them operate in India, US, and then they do the business in such a way that they try to make use of the loopholes in the system, and those are the blind corners where the elephant is not monitored. So the 10 regulators monitoring the elephant from different angles, but there's still blind corners. So the blind corners are the ones which the fraudsters try to attack. I mean, if I were a fraudster, theoretically speaking, that is what I will try to do. I will try to understand a complex system, and then I'll find out where do the blind spots lie. What has happened over the last 20-30 years is law has generally managed to catch up with the evolution of finance. So what happens is, on a very dynamic basis, law is trying to identify which are the blind spots, and then they are trying to plug it. Unfortunately, the pace of financial innovation, that is a fintech innovation, is so high that new blind spots keep coming up. So there's always opportunity for fraudsters to harness this kind of blind spots. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
that's
what I think. Uh,
No, I think it makes sense because I was going to ask you that as an ecosystem, you have investors, regulators, you have various financial intermediaries who now have access to so much data and so many tools like AI. So I'm sure, from even the your side, you must be using so much of data, or you must be seeing such volumes of data, but we are not able to crack the code of these fraudsters early enough. Like you said, it's reactive, then you plug that loophole and then the next one is uncovered somewhere, right? So what we really need is more financial tech innovation.
Yes, we also need more financial tech innovation, and also we need that attitude of being proactive whenever a new innovation is happening. So if you look at the FATF document, FATF literature, FATF is Financial Action Task Force on money laundering and terror financing. It is a watchdog. It is an international watchdog on money laundering. So FATF has always stressed that whenever you are coming out with any kind of a new financial product, what you do is you first set up a regulatory sandbox. So you try that product within the regulatory sandbox, and when you're trying that product, you also look at the AML CFT controls, that is anti-money laundering and counter terror financing controls, which basically include the fraud controls also. How much, to what extent that area is prone to fraud. So that is how it should happen generally. But the pace of innovation is so high that many times the governments miss out on that. I mean, there is a way out. There is a way out, but a government has to be really diligent to do that. And yes, technology always helps. RegTech. I strongly believe that regulatory technology, public-private partnership in devising controls, that is always very, very beneficial. Government and the private sector have to work together, because the government simply does not have the wherewithal. It simply does not have the expertise to develop regulatory technologies. RegTech can only be developed by geeks, okay, who you find in the private sector only.
Yeah, no, that's a nice new term, reg tech, because you're right. The geeks are focused on the actual products and the actual technology innovation, but you know we needed to work in parallel with the regulatory framework that's coming up, right? And we tend to, when we don't know what's happening, we tend to ban it, or create restrictions or barriers, right? Today crypto and the whole digital currency, if we don't know what's happening, we say okay, it's banned, don't venture into it, but it's thriving on its own, right? So do you see a huge danger lurking there?
Yes, definitely. Cryptocurrency is a major area of danger. I will tell you what is happening now with the Ponzi schemes. So Ponzi schemes, if you remember in my book, I have referred to a Ponzi scheme that was there in a book of R.K. Narayan, the financial expert. Okay, so R.K. Narayan, in a very beautiful way, he has explained how a Ponzi scheme used to work in that time. So nowadays, Ponzi schemes have become much more complex, but the government has also started caught up with a lot of Ponzi schemes. And a lot of bursts happened in that between in the last 1 decade. But nowadays, what is happening is Ponzi schemes have also metamorphosized in such a way that now they are all based outside the country. Their base is outside the country. They are selling cryptocurrencies. In the name of cryptocurrencies, they are selling fake tokens. So they are actually not cryptocurrencies. They're coming out with ICOs, initial coin offerings. Now SEBI has said that there are only two ways you can raise money from public. One is through the IPO route, initial public offering, and second is through the CIS route, collective investment scheme route. Now these ICOs, they are never registered with SEBI, and still they are raising money from the public. So they are unregistered entities. They are doing illegal activities. I mean, frankly speaking, they are completely doing illegal activities. And many of the ICOs, they are making claims to the gullible investors, saying that we'll give you a return of 5% per month. We'll give you, I mean, you'll get a return of 10% per month. They're making this kind of promises and raising money from the people. You can never trust anyone with your money unless that person is regulated by the government. Now under now these people, they claim that they're cryptocurrencies, but they're actually not cryptocurrencies. They're coming out with some kind of arbitrary tokens, and they're selling it to the people, saying that this currency, my currency, let's say XYG currency, it is similar to Bitcoin. So people also start thinking that okay, it may be a decentralized system, it may be totally decentralized system, and they start putting their money here. And many people have been fooled by this kind of scams. In my book, I have actually discussed the story of so-called crypto Ponzi king, Amit Bharadwaj. So there are cases against him. There are many cases against him. What he did is that initially he started raising money from people, saying that he will buy bitcoins for them. So he actually bought bitcoins, but he never gave it to the investors. Why? Because he had promised a return of 10% per month. Now that is not possible for him to do. So later, when the investor said that you please give us our money back, he said, okay, fine. I'll not give you Bitcoin. I'll give you ICAP. It's a new currency that he had developed. So
Great.
ICAP, they were backing for ICAP. Okay. And after one more year, he simply vanished from India. He went to Dubai, and ultimately a lot of LEA activity happened. Law enforcement investigation happened, but they never found the trail of the money. So all of that money that investors had put into this ISCP, all of that went down the drain. It was pretty
Hmm.
unfortunate. And a lot of such scams are happening on today's date. They will approach you through Telegram groups, through Facebook, through social network, anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's on us to be really vigilant, and I like what you said, that follow the regulation. Where there's regulation, then you have a little more safety and surety, right? I think one of the interesting things about the book was, like, when we all think of Indian financial system and fraud, Harshad Mehta comes to mind, and you actually mentioned that you were tempted to exclude Harshad Mehta's story. Why is that?
Because I was tempted to exclude it because what Harshad Mehta did was actually pretty simple. It was a loan against stay scam, LAS, we call
Yes.
that in technical terms. And that kind of scam is something that has been happening for a long time before Harshad Mehta. So Harshad Mehta scam was a huge scam, unlike the other ones, but it was a very simple scam. It was a huge
Yes.
scam, but because of the magnitude and because of the victims that it created in 1990s, that has got imprinted in our head. But if you look at the modus operandi, it was a very simple modus operandi. And before him, even Haridas Mundra in 1950s had done the same scam. And because of Haridas Mundra in 1950s, the entire Calcutta Stock Exchange had shut down. I mean, the entire Calcutta Stock Exchange had crashed because of the scam of Haridas Mundra. And it's a very simple pump and dump scheme. So because of that, I said I'm tempted not to even discuss that scam.
Uh, yeah, but I'm glad you did, because I think for all of us, when we read about scams, we need to hear that story. And like you said, it's in a way shocking, the simplicity of it,
Yeah.
because it feels like it must have been so complex if he conned so many people for so long, right? Is there anything in your research while you were putting all of this together, and you've touched upon so many different kind of serious frauds, that really came as a surprise to you?
Well, Mm, if I can, if you can name any one, any one scam that came as a surprise to me, I would say that while I was researching about securities frauds, I came to know that insider trading is actually pretty insipid. I mean, the insider trading is actually pretty rampant. Okay, and it's
Okay.
very, and when I looked into the nitty gritties of how you are booking a case against insider trading, so there's a concept called price sensitive information (PSI). It's a technical term. So what SEBI tries to do is that SEBI tries to prove in a court of law that there is a price sensitive information (PSI) which has been leaked out. And if you look at the language of the law, anything can be called a PSI. So let's say you are connected to a company, and over snacks and coffee, you just tell me that something's happening in your company. I get to know I'm not related to the company. Now tomorrow I go and invest in that company. Okay, so I can also be accused of price sensitive information. More importantly, in Bombay, Dalal Street, near that area, in that area itself, there are many small groups that keep chattering with each other. So there's something called HOS, hard on street. So HO is a very important piece of intel which you always use. It keeps you grounded. You get to know what is happening in which company, which company is performing well, which company has internal issues. So HOS can also be termed as PSI. So HOS, hardened street, can also be termed as a price sensitive information, and you can also be accused of insider trading. In fact, there are a couple of people whom SEBI accused of insider trading. Why? Because they were part of a WhatsApp group, and in the WhatsApp group, some arbitrary person said that look, the shares of XYG company are going to go up because that company has got this license. Okay, so based on that input, I, as a WhatsApp group member, I am investing in a company, and I have also been booked by SEBI. I have been penalized by SEBI. So that actually came as a kind of a. I mean, I got frightened when I read it. As a government servant, coming across a lot of stuff, and that's the reason why I'm not
Right.
allowed to, trade on the stock market. But as a private
Correct.
citizen, if I'm coming across something innocently and I'm using it to my
Yeah.
advantage, that can victimize me. That
Right.
spoke to me really.
Yeah, no, interesting. That's scary. Like we're trying to see how do we catch the big guys, but the small guys like us can get caught easily because of an inadvertent conversation or a message here or there, right? It's always hard on the small guys, I think. End of the day. So we have a couple of questions from the audience. So they say, Smarak, you must be very courageous to write such a book, given that you're a government employee. So, how much of your book is about complicity of government officials in frauds?
Subha, that I have kept that for another book. Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
So bribery, so kickbacks, bribery, and corruption. Those are serious ills. Okay, and they marry not only our society, they marry every society. Okay, so and that is an ill which is actually affecting our financial system in a big way. There's no doubt about it. But that was not the focus of this book.
correct.
uh, and in fact, I was surprised to see that many times government servants are not even aware of this kind of frauds. Many times government servants are also not aware of this kind of frauds. I mean, you
Mm,
leave Ponzi schemes, okay, because Ponzi schemes are some things which you may get to know before even the Ponzi scheme gets busted, but you do not have any means of catching it probably. But if you look at the securities frauds, if you look at accounting frauds, you see that government servants are actually found gaping because
mm,
they don't really realize. And I'll give the example of Nirav Modi fraud. The fraud was of such a huge magnitude, but
correct.
the bank manager in I think that was Parel branch of Mumbai. Someone may correct me. The bank manager in that branch, he was accused of corruption, and there was a CBI investigation. So the CBI booked a disproportionate asset case against him, the disproportionate case was of an amount of only 1.5 crores or 2 crores. I don't remember the exact figures, around
That's
that
what you
number.
mentioned. Yeah. Hmm.
Whereas the fraud was of the magnitude of 4,000 crores, 5,000 crores, which means that this bank manager, he never realized how big a fraud he was perpetuating. He was probably involved in facilitating one small transaction or facilitating one small activity. Okay, but
Correct.
he did not know that the fraud runs so deep.
Yeah. Yeah. In the interest of his work, his client, he did something which he didn't realize the size and scale of.
Yes. At the same time, I'm not saying that government servants are holy or anything. Okay,
No,
but
we'll
the
wait for your next book to know more.
sure.
Yeah. So, one more question from the audience. So, these Ponzi schemes and all of these, which so many get trapped in so easily, isn't the greedy investor also responsible? How do you believe that you will get 10% return, 20% return per month on such kind of on your money?
Yeah, that is true. That is true that the greedy investor is also responsible, but we also need to understand who are these greedy investors. Some good degree of analysis has happened on this. So, who are these
Hmm.
investors? They are usually young, young unemployed people, okay, who
Okay.
are quite aspirational, but they don't find a way out. Okay, so they want to get rich quick. So they are always in the lookout for some avenue for getting rich quick. Okay, so it's
Quick.
not that they're greedy, they are just dreaming. I mean, they're dreaming well. I
Hmm.
mean, they
Hmm.
have a dream. Okay, and they do not have a they probably, many of them do not have a way of achieving their dream. So those who have a way of achieving their dream, those who are well educated, those who have got the right education, those who have a job, so they have a way of achieving their dream. But those who do not have a way of achieving their dream, they try to look out for this kind of avenues. So when they see that, yeah, this kind of avenue is possible, even if somewhere in their heart they feel that, yeah, this does not sound right. Okay, they want to believe in this, and so they invest in this kind of schemes.
Makes sense. Yeah. So while I'm going to share and recommend this to a lot of my, especially banker friends, what's the one book that you gift or recommend a lot?
Well, the one, no, no, that's a pretty difficult
Difficult one.
one. Which book to name?
Do you have a favorite that you reread maybe because you like it so much?
uh, you. So, can I go towards fictions also? Because
Yes, yes, definitely.
I love the books of John Grisham, and in fact, what I have recently started doing, I have read almost all the books of John Grisham. I've started doing a second round of reading. So I'm again purchasing the books of John Grisham, which I had read some 5 years, 6 years back, and I've started reading them back again. So you can say
Oh,
not a single book, but the genre of John Grisham. I love that in fiction.
that's an exciting genre. That much excitement and raciness is there even in the great Indian fraud. Thank you so much, Smarak, for joining us this evening. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for your time and
Same here,
sharing.
Subha, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank
I
you.
had a good time here. Bye, all.
Thank you so much. Bye.